This is for all my moms. If you listen to this all the way through, you'll walk away with clarity on why you feel behind even when you're trying, how goals are meant to turn into habits that create momentum instead of burnout, and that small daily decisions actually build confidence, self respect, and long term stability for you and your family. Most people think the problem is that they don't set goals, but the real problem is that they don't stay long enough for those goals to turn into habits. When you don't do that, life doesn't pause or wait for you to catch up. It keeps moving. Other people keep building momentum. You slowly fall behind without realizing it. In my 30s, something shifted. Not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly. And I stopped chasing who I thought I was supposed to be and started paying attention to who I actually am, because chasing approval is exhausting and it never leads to peace. At the beginning of life, and honestly for a long time, I cared too much about what people thought. I said things just to be accepted. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I tried to please people at the expense of myself. And eventually I realized the cost, because every yes that wasn't aligned took something from me: my energy, my focus, my confidence. That's when I understood something important. You can't build a strong life while living for everyone else. And you definitely can't build confidence that way either. Confidence didn't come from one big moment for me, it came from repetition, from doing the same small things daily, consistently, intentionally, with discipline, because confidence isn't a personality trait, it's evidence. It's built, and it's built in private. When goals don't become habits, they don't just disappear. They turn into broken promises to yourself. And those promises matter because they're commitments to being better, to taking care of yourself, to choosing growth over comfort. And every time you break them, you quietly teach yourself that your own word doesn't matter. If you don't change your patterns, your future self will be the one paying for it. Not in dramatic ways at first, but in small daily frustrations, low energy, avoidable health issues, feeling behind in conversations, feeling less confident in rooms you should belong in, and wondering how other people seem so far ahead when the only real difference was consistency over time. You don't fall behind overnight. You fall behind one skipped workout at a time, one ignored habit at a time, one "I'll do it tomorrow" repeated for years. And by the time you notice, catching up feels overwhelming, because you're not just starting the habit, you're undoing years of neglect. Having my kids changed everything for me, not just my schedule, but my standards, because suddenly my effort had direction. They became my purpose and the reason I expect more from myself, even on the days I don't feel like it. If you're a mom listening to this, you already understand that pull, that desire to be better, not perfect, just better. I'm a mom who prioritizes my kids' development and growth. I invest my time and resources to help them build real foundations. Hard work, discipline, accountability, responsibility, because the world does not reward entitlement. It rewards capability, and what we model as parents becomes their baseline. That's why working out became non negotiable for me, because when you don't build the habit early, strength declines, mobility disappears, and what could have been maintenance turns into recovery. And instead of training for longevity, you're just trying to get back to baseline while time keeps moving forward. My mornings became sacred, protected, lifting weights, weight training, physical, mental, emotional, and I showed up day after day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. When I take care of my body, my mental health follows. At first, it took effort, then discipline, and now it brings peace. And eventually, I started looking forward to my workouts, not just for the strength, but for the clarity they give me. Clarity that spills into parenting, decision making, and confidence. Skincare followed the same pattern, because I knew I was getting older, and instead of fighting that, I respected it. So I built a daily routine, not out of vanity, but out of self respect: daily cleansing, sunscreen, retinol, simple, consistent, non negotiable. It's about learning to show up for yourself in small ways every day. Now, when I look at my face, I don't see something I'm trying to fix. I see consistency, care, intention, aging I'm proud of because it reflects how I've lived. Eating healthy, learning, reading, all of it followed the same rule because habits built early support energy, focus, and long term health, while habits ignored turn into things you're forced to deal with later. And learning in particular became non negotiable because when you stop learning, you don't stay still, you fall behind. I stack my time intentionally. I listen to podcasts while I train, while I cook, while I shower, because time is limited. I stopped wasting it and I became intentional about what I read: investing books, macroeconomics, psychology, leadership, because how you think determines how you decide. And those decisions compound for your family, whether you're paying attention or not. I chose to homeschool my kids so our home could reflect our values. But the real lessons don't only happen at a table, they happen in car rides to hockey practices, in real conversations, in everyday moments. And any mom can do that. You don't need a perfect condition, just presence. I became intentional about what I allow into my mind because what we consume shapes how we think, and how we think shapes how we lead our families. So I study people who've actually built something, not for motivation, but for patterns. And the same traits show up every time: discipline, resilience, growth through discomfort. So I leaned into discomfort, saw failure as feedback, chose growth over comfort, and along the way, I learned to protect my time and energy, to say no to what drains me, to set boundaries without guilt. Because if it doesn't move me towards ownership, independence, freedom, and control over my decisions, it's a no. My faith deepened the same way everything else did: daily, consistently, with discipline, built over time, tested, strengthened, reminding me that growth isn't rushed and neither is purpose. Somewhere along the way, I stopped trying to be liked, stopped people pleasing, and started living aligned. And I can honestly say I've never been more confident than I am now in the last year of my 30s. Not because everything is perfect, but because I trust myself. I trust my discipline and I trust my ability to figure things out. And I want the same for you because this isn't about being exceptional or having more time or more help. It's about deciding to show up for yourself in small ways, consistently. And I know we are capable of it. I love this version of me. She respects her time, protects her energy, invests where it matters, keeps promises to herself. And that matters because goals and habits are promises to become better, proof that you love yourself, and proof that you're building something bigger than just today. So, the real question isn't what goals you want, it's whether you're willing to keep the promises you make to yourself long enough for them to become who you are. Because that's how discipline becomes legacy. And that's how the next generation learns what self respect actually looks like. Turning 40 doesn't scare me. It excites me because I'm not starting over. I'm starting from experience. I know my rhythms now. I know what works. I know what matters. And the best part is I'm just getting started, clearer, stronger, and more grounded than I've ever been. One decision, one habit, one day at a time. So if this resonates, don't just feel it, sit with it. Ask yourself some honest, deep questions because real change starts with clarity, not motivation. Ask yourself, where am I breaking promises to myself right now? And what is that teaching me about how I value myself? What habits do I keep saying I want, but haven't stayed consistent with long enough to let them change me? If my kids modeled their life after what I do daily, not what I say, would I be proud of the example? What am I avoiding because it feels uncomfortable, even though I know avoiding it is costing me more in the long run? If I stayed on my current path for the next 5 years, would my future self thank me or resent me? What is one small habit I could commit today, that would make the rest of my life easier if I stayed consistent? And finally, am I willing to stop waiting for the right time and start acting like my future actually matters now? You don't need to answer all of them at once. You just need to be honest because the life you want isn't built in big moments. It's built in the promises you keep quietly, daily, consistently, starting now. If this content is helpful, please support my channel and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.